The peace before the storm. For Adam Lawson, life had always been simple: work hard, respect nature, and mind his own business. His family's farm had been there for generations, long before the suburban development of Willow Creek Estates sprang up on the horizon. The land was more than just a home to him. It was a piece of history, a legacy passed down through blood and sweat. Every morning, Adam woke up to the soft golden sunrise over his fields, the sound of roosters crowing, and the gentle rustling of leaves in the wind. It was the kind of peace city folks could never understand. But, as he would soon learn, not everyone appreciated the beauty of a working farm. Enter Melissa Thornton, the self-appointed queen of Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association. The woman had an unshakable belief that she controlled everything within her sight, even land that didn't belong to her. The moment she set her eyes on Adam's farm, she saw not a historical piece of land, but an eyesore that clashed with her vision of a perfect uniform neighborhood. The first time she appeared at Adam's property, she was dressed in a pristine beige suit, clipboard in hand, with the attitude of someone used to getting her way. Adam, sitting on his porch with a steaming cup of coffee, watched her approach with mild amusement. He had no idea that this overzealous HOA president was about to turn his peaceful life into an all-out war. The first encounter, Adam Lawson wasn't the type to get involved in drama. He preferred the peace of his farm, the rhythm of early mornings, and the satisfaction of hard work. But when Melissa Thornton, president of the Willow Creek Estates HOA, marched onto his property, clipboard in hand and a smug look on her face, he knew he was about to deal with something far more frustrating than a broken tractor. As she approached, Adam leaned back in his porch chair, sipping his coffee, already sensing that this woman was trouble. "You must be Mr. Lawson," she said. Her voice clipped and professional. Adam nodded, unfazed. "That's me. And you are?" Melissa smiled, but there was nothing friendly about it. "Melissa Thornton, president of the Willow Creek Estates HOA. I wanted to have a little chat about your property." Adam arched an eyebrow. "Didn't know my property had anything to do with your HOA." Melissa's smile tightened. "Well, technically, it doesn't. But your farm sits right on the edge of our community, and as I'm sure you understand, property values are a delicate matter." Adam set his coffee down, realizing where this was going. "Is that so?" "It is," Melissa continued. "We've received multiple complaints about your operations, the noise, the smell, the visual impact on the neighborhood. We maintain a certain aesthetic, and frankly, your farm doesn't fit." Adam let out a short laugh. "And what exactly do you want me to do about it?" Melissa flipped through her clipboard, acting as though she were making a generous offer. "For starters, that large red barn is quite an eyesore. Perhaps a more neutral color? Or downsizing it altogether? And then there's the matter of the rooster. Some of our residents have mentioned being woken up before sunrise. It's quite disruptive." Adam stared at her for a long moment, trying to determine if she was serious. His barn had been standing for nearly 60 years, its red paint a staple of the farm's history. And as for the rooster, this was the countryside, not a gated suburb. "Let me get this straight," he said, rubbing his chin. "You want me to repaint my barn and convince my rooster to hit the snooze button, all because your residents don't? Like the sound of the countryside?" Melissa didn't even blink. "Mr. Lawson, I understand that change can be difficult, but this is really in everyone's best interest. I'd hate for this to become a more complicated issue." There it was. The threat, Adam sighed, standing up and stretching. "Well, Miss Thornton, I appreciate you stopping by, but my farm isn't part of the HOA. I don't answer to your rules, and as far as I can tell, my land, my barn, and my animals aren't hurting anyone." Melissa's lips pressed into a thin line. "We'll see about that." And with that, she turned sharply on her heel and marched back to her SUV. Adam watched her leave, shaking his head. He had dealt with stubborn animals before, but something told him Melissa was going to be a whole different kind of problem. The war begins. Adam Lawson had dealt with stubborn mules, angry bulls, and unpredictable weather. But Melissa Thornton? She was shaping up to be the most relentless pest yet. After their first encounter, Adam hoped she'd drop the issue and move on, but deep down, he knew better. People like Melissa didn't give up easily. And sure enough, the harassment began. Almost immediately, the HOA's first attack lists. Then a week after their conversation, Adam found an official-looking envelope stuffed into his mailbox. The return address? Willow Creek Estates. HOA. He smirked before even opening it. Inside, the letter outlined a list of supposed violations that his farm was committing. Unapproved exterior color. Red barn clashes with neighborhood aesthetics. Excessive noise pollution. Rooster crowing before 8 a.m. disrupts community peace. Unauthorized livestock. Goats, cows, and chickens are not allowed within community guidelines. Failure to comply. You must cease non-compliant activities within 7 days or face legal action. Adam nearly spit out his coffee laughing. They really thought this would scare him? First off, his farm wasn't in the HOA. Second, there was no law against having a red barn or farm animals on a farm. And third, did they seriously think they could control what time his rooster woke up? The petty harassment. Escalates. Adam decided to ignore the letter, figuring they'd give up once they realized they had no power over him. Big mistake. A few days later, he started noticing unmarked vehicles parked near his property at odd hours. At first, he thought it was just nosy HOA members. But then he saw a drone flying over his land. Melissa had actually hired someone to spy on him. That same evening, another HOA letter arrived, this one even more aggressive. It claimed that multiple complaints had been filed against him and warned that the HOA was considering further action. Adam shook his head. They were getting desperate, Melissa's boldest move. Yet, the next morning, as Adam was repairing a section of his wooden fence, he heard the unmistakable sound of power tools nearby. Curious and suspicious, he set down his tools and walked toward the noise. What he saw made his blood boil. A group of hired workers was erecting a massive metal privacy fence on his land. And who was standing there supervising with a smug expression? Melissa Thornton, clipboard in hand, nodding approvingly as the workers dug holes and set posts into the ground. Adam strode up like a storm rolling in. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Melissa turned, her face the picture of fake surprise. "Oh, Mr. Lawson, just implementing some much-needed community improvements. This new privacy fence will help preserve the visual harmony of Willow Creek Estates." Adam gestured at the workers. "This fence is on my land, Melissa." Her smile didn't falter. "Well, that's debatable. You see, we reviewed older survey maps, and we believe the original property lines were drawn incorrectly. Since your farm borders our community, it's in everyone's best interest to adjust accordingly." Adam's fingers curled into fists. They were literally trying to steal his land. "You believe the property lines were incorrect?" he repeated, his voice dangerously calm. "Yes," Melissa said smoothly. "And until we receive further clarification, we're proceeding with this improvement project. Adam takes action." Adam turned to the workers, his voice sharp. "You boys got a permit for this?" One of the men hesitated, then muttered, HOA told us they had all the legal permissions." Adam smirked. "They don't. And if you don't pack up and leave in the next 5 minutes, you're trespassing, which means I'll be calling the sheriff." That did it. The workers exchanged nervous glances before one of them shut off the saw. Clearly, none of them wanted to get arrested for a power-hungry HOA president. Melissa, however, was livid. "You can't just order them to leave," she snapped. "This is a community decision." Adam pulled out his phone, holding it up in plain view. "Then let's make it official and have the county sort it out." For the first time, Melissa paled. She was bluffing, and she knew it. With an angry huff, she signaled for the workers to leave. The fence project was dead before it even started, but Adam knew Melissa wasn't done, and neither was he. Melissa's next move. Adam Lawson had won the first round. The fence project was dead. The hired workers had packed up, Melissa Thornton had stormed away in frustration, and Adam's land remained untouched. But he knew better than to assume she was finished. Melissa wasn't the type to take no for an answer. The HOA goes for the kill a week after the fence fiasco. Adam woke up to a shocking sight. Right by the road, on his land, was a massive "for sale" sign. It wasn't just any sign. It had the Willow Creek Estates HOA logo on it. along with the words, "Future site of Crestwood Meadows expansion, under negotiation." Adam stood there for a solid minute, staring in disbelief. They were trying to sell his farm, without his permission. Confronting. Adam didn't even bother calling the HOA office. He drove straight to Melissa's house. He barely had time to knock before she swung the door open, clearly expecting him. "Mr. Lawson," she said, her voice sweet but smug. What a surprise. Adam's jaw tightened. "Melissa, take that damn sign off my land." She sighed dramatically, as if he were an unreasonable child. "Oh, that. Yes. There's been a bit of confusion. Some real estate developers expressed interest in acquiring land for a community expansion. It seems there was a clerical error, and your farm was included in the discussion." Adam narrowed his eyes. "You're telling me a real estate agency just mistakenly put a for sale sign on my land, completely by accident?" Melissa's smile faltered slightly. "Well, perhaps there was some enthusiasm about the prospect." Adam took a slow step forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call whoever put that sign up and tell them to never set foot on my property again. Because if I see another one, I won't be tearing it down. I'll be suing the entire HOA for fraud." Melissa's pleasant expression cracked. Now, Mr. Lawson, let's not be hasty." Adam pulled out his phone. "I can also get the county involved, if you'd like." Melissa's lips pressed into a thin line. With an angry huff, she muttered, "Fine, I'll handle it." And just like that, the sign was gone by sunset. But Adam knew Melissa wasn't backing down. She was getting desperate. The HOA's dirty tactics. Over the next 2 weeks, Adam was hit with wave after wave of petty harassment. His mailbox was knocked over 3 times. A noise complaint was filed against him on a day he wasn't even home. His garbage bins disappeared, only to be found violating HOA rules 2 blocks away. Random people started showing up at his farm, asking if it was for sale. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts. But Adam didn't give in. He documented everything, every false complaint, every intrusion, every attempt to force him out. Melissa thought she was breaking him down. She had no idea he was building a case. Melissa takes it too far one night. At around 2:30 a.m., Adam's security cameras picked up movement near his gate. Curious, he checked the live feed on his phone, and there she was, Melissa Thornton. She wasn't alone. She had 2 HOA board members with her, and they were tampering with his fence. Adam grabbed his phone and hit record. Gotcha. Then, he called the police. The moment of truth. When the cops arrived, Melissa was caught red-handed. The officers approached, flashlights beaming. "Ma'am, step away from the property." Melissa jumped, then quickly plastered on her fake innocent smile. "Oh, officers, this is just a misunderstanding. We were merely inspecting—" "Inspecting what?" Adam cut in, stepping outside. "Because it looks a lot like trespassing and vandalism to me." One of the officers turned to Adam. "Do you want to press charges?" Melissa's smile vanished. Adam thought about it. This woman had harassed him, filed false reports, tried to steal his land, and now she was literally sneaking onto his property to sabotage his fence. He took a deep breath. "Yes, I do." The moment the handcuffs clicked around Melissa's wrists, she lost it. "You can't do this." "I'm on the HOA board," she shrieked. One of the officers chuckled. "Not anymore, ma'am." As they led her to the squad car, she locked eyes with Adam, seething. "You'll regret this." Adam grinned. "Oh, I really don't think I will." The fallout by morning, the entire neighborhood knew what had happened. Melissa's mugshot circulated online. The HOA scrambled to distance themselves, claiming Melissa had acted alone and that her behavior was not representative of the board. But it was too late. Within a week, the board held an emergency meeting. Melissa was officially removed from her position. A month later, her house went up for sale. Rumor had it she had been pressured to leave. Adam didn't care. All he cared about was one simple fact. Melissa Thornton was gone, and so was her HOA tyranny. The aftermath of Melissa's downfall with Melissa Thornton arrested and her reign of terror over, Adam Lawson expected life to finally return to normal. For the first time in months, there were no more surprise letters. no more false complaints, and no more shady attempts to steal his land. But the damage had already been done. The entire neighborhood was shaken. And the HOA? They were scrambling to survive. A formal apology from the HOA one afternoon. Adam found one last letter from the Willow Creek Estates HOA in his mailbox. At first, he considered tossing it straight into the trash, but curiosity got the better of him. Inside was a formal apology from the newly appointed HOA president, Richard Connors. Dear Mr. Lawson, on behalf of the Willow Creek Estates HOA, I want to extend a sincere apology for the harassment you endured. The actions of Melissa Thornton and certain former board members do not reflect the values we wish to uphold. We recognize that your property is private, and that the HOA had no legal authority over it. We deeply regret any distress caused. Moving forward, we are committed to ensuring that no further disputes arise between the HOA and non-member residents such as yourself. If you have any concerns, please do not hesitate to contact us directly. Sincerely, the new HOA board. Adam chuckled to himself. Now they wanted to make peace? They sure as hell didn't feel that way when they were sending code enforcement after him and trying to trick the county into redrawing property lines. But now that their dictator was gone and their reputation was in shambles, they were waving the white flag. Still, he appreciated the irony. The neighborhood's changing attitude. Without Melissa around, the neighborhood took on an entirely different energy. For months, many of the HOA members had sided with her, or at the very least, stayed silent while she made Adam's life hell. But now they saw the truth. Some even went out of their way to apologize when they saw him in town. A woman named Linda Matthews, who had once supported Melissa, brought him a homemade pie as a peace offering. One of the older HOA members, Greg, admitted that he never wanted to be involved in the fight, but felt pressured to go along with Melissa's orders. Even Richard Connors himself came to Adam's farm personally to shake his hand. Adam didn't fully forgive them, but he accepted their apologies. After all, Melissa was the real enemy, and now she was gone, enjoying his property. Again, for the first time in a long while, Adam could finally enjoy his home the way it was meant to be. No more trespassers, no more HOA drama, no more petty harassment, just his land, his animals, and his freedom. He spent the next few weeks repairing fences, planting new crops, and expanding his farmer's market. With all the extra publicity from his feud with the HOA, more people than ever came to buy his fresh produce and support local farming. Melissa had tried to drive him out. Instead, she made him more successful than ever. The best revenge. Adam never set out to destroy the HOA. He never wanted a war with his neighbors. All he ever wanted was to be left alone. But when someone threatens your home, your land, and your way of life, you have two choices: bow down or fight back. Adam chose to fight, and in the end, he won. Peace at last, but not without scars. For the first time in what felt like forever, Adam Lawson could finally wake up without the weight of an ongoing battle hanging over him. Melissa Thornton, the power-hungry dictator of Willow Creek Estates, was gone. Her fall from grace had been swift. After being caught trespassing and tampering with Adam's fence, she was arrested, removed from the HOA, and eventually forced to sell her house and leave the neighborhood entirely. The harassment, the legal threats, the false complaints, all of it was finally over. But even though Adam had won the war, he couldn't help but feel the lasting effects of the battle. The HOA had left scars, and while they were no longer an immediate threat, Adam knew better than to let his guard down completely. A new dynamic in the neighborhood. Without Melissa in charge, the entire dynamic of Willow Creek Estates shifted. The fear that once loomed over the neighborhood was gone. People no longer felt like they were walking on eggshells, terrified of receiving petty fines for minor infractions or being reported for violating absurd aesthetic rules. For the first time in years, homeowners actually started enjoying their community again. Kids rode their bikes freely without someone complaining about sidewalk safety violations. Neighbors actually talked to one another instead of fearing who might report them. Holiday decorations stayed up as long as people wanted them to, without an HOA enforcer measuring the exact date they needed to be removed. Adam, despite being an outsider to the HOA, could feel the shift. People who had once looked at him with contempt or ignored him altogether now greeted him with polite nods and small talk. Some even ventured out to his farm to buy produce, something they never would have done while Melissa was still in charge. It was a community again. And Adam? He felt a strange sense of satisfaction knowing that, in some way, he had helped make that happen. Melissa's final attempt at revenge. Just when Adam thought he had seen the last of Melissa, her name popped up one final time. A local news article about Willow Creek Estate's recent leadership change made its way to his inbox. The article covered Melissa's removal, her many HOA overreach scandals, and even her arrest for trespassing on private property. But the part that really made Adam smirk? Melissa had tried to sue the HOA for wrongful termination. She genuinely believed she had been unfairly removed, despite the mountain of evidence against her. The lawsuit went nowhere. She had no case, no support, and no credibility left. She had spent years bullying people, forcing rules onto others, and making lives miserable. And in the end, she was kicked out of her own kingdom. Poetic justice indeed. Moving forward, a community without fear. With Melissa gone for good, the HOA slowly rebuilt itself under new leadership. Richard Connors, the new president, made good on his promise to take a hands-off approach when it came to Adam's property. No more fake violation notices. No more harassment disguised as community concerns. No more attempts to annex land that didn't belong to them. Adam still didn't trust the HOA entirely, but he had to admit, they were keeping their word. As time passed, Willow Creek Estates finally became a community that functioned without fear, and that was worth celebrating. Adam's farm thrives, thanks to Melissa. Despite everything Melissa had done to drive Adam out, her interference had actually helped him in the long run. The publicity from their feud brought more customers to his farm. The town had rallied behind him, supporting local farmers' markets more than ever. Even some HOA members became regular customers, enjoying the very unsightly farm Melissa once tried to erase. The irony wasn't lost on Adam. Melissa had spent months trying to destroy his farm, but in the end, she had only made it stronger. The best revenge is moving on. As Adam stood on his porch one crisp morning, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over his thriving land, he realized something. The best revenge wasn't about getting even. It wasn't about holding on to anger, rubbing Melissa's downfall in her face, or fighting battles just to prove a point. It was about winning by living well, by standing his ground, by protecting what was his, by refusing to bow to people who thought they could control him. Melissa Thornton was gone. Her legacy of control had crumbled, and Adam? He was still here, stronger than ever, and free. Victory tastes like freedom. Adam Lawson stood on his porch, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over his thriving farm. The past several months had been a battle, one he never asked for, but one he wasn't willing to lose. Melissa Thornton, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, had tried everything to control him. She sent false complaints. She attempted to steal his land. She harassed him with legal threats, and when all else failed, she resorted to trespassing and vandalism. And where did that get her? Kicked out of her own community, jobless and humiliated. Now, her name was nothing but a cautionary tale in Willow Creek Estates, a reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked. And Adam? He was still standing. The town's newfound respect. Adam had never cared about being a hero. He didn't fight back for attention. He did it because it was the right thing to do. But whether he liked it or not, his battle against the HOA had made him something of a local legend. People in town, even those who weren't directly involved, knew his story. Some would shake his hand when they saw him at the farmer's market. Others would nod with a knowing look, as if to say, "Good for you." Even the neighbors who once ignored him now greeted him with a wave. Some even became loyal customers, buying eggs, vegetables, and milk from the very farm Melissa had tried to erase. The irony of it all wasn't lost on Adam. Melissa had spent months trying to run him out, but instead, she had made him more successful than ever. The new HOA stays in line after Melissa's downfall. The new HOA leadership made good on their promises. They didn't send any more letters. They didn't bother Adam with nonsense complaints. And most importantly, they stayed out of his business. Richard Connors, the new HOA president, even personally assured Adam that they would never attempt to interfere with his property again. Adam still didn't trust them completely, but at least now, they seemed to understand their place. HOAs were meant to protect homeowners within their jurisdiction, not act as personal dictatorships. With Melissa gone, Willow Creek Estates finally felt like a normal community again. People could decorate their homes as they pleased, let their kids play outside without fear of being fined, and actually enjoy living in their own neighborhood. And Adam, he could finally enjoy his farm the way it was meant to be enjoyed. Melissa's final downfall. Few weeks after Melissa left town, Adam heard rumors about her new life. Apparently, she had moved to another HOA-controlled neighborhood, thinking she could start fresh. But what she didn't realize? The HOA in that community had an even stricter enforcer, someone just as power-hungry as she had been. It wasn't long before Melissa found herself on the receiving end of the very same rules she once forced on others. She was fined for her lawn being uneven. She was reported for parking too close to her driveway's edge. She was written up for having a wreath on her door past the HOA's approved holiday period. And the best part? No one cared. She tried fighting back, but unlike her previous reign, she had no power here, and soon enough, her new house was up for sale. Melissa Thornton had spent years using the HOA to control others. Now she was powerless, trapped by the very system she once ruled. If that wasn't karma, Adam didn't know what was. The best revenge of all one afternoon, Adam added something new to his property. Right by the entrance, just outside the HOA's boundaries, he erected a wooden sign. It was simple, bold, and perfect. Welcome to Lawson Farms, no show, no bulls, no Melissa. It became something of a town landmark. People stopped to take pictures next to it, laughing at the reminder of the great HOA war. Adam never wanted this fight, but if nothing else, at least, he came out of it with a victory he could be proud of. And as he sat on his porch, watching the sun set over his land, he took a deep breath, feeling truly free. Because in the end, Melissa was gone. The HOA was tamed. And Adam, he had everything he ever wanted, a community rebuilt, without fear. With Melissa Thornton gone for good, Adam Lawson finally had his peace back. The HOA, once a looming threat, had retreated into its proper place, no longer trying to control what wasn't theirs. And the best part? The entire neighborhood had changed, a new, better community. Without Melissa micromanaging every aspect of people's lives, Willow Creek Estates transformed. No more passive-aggressive warning letters. No more unnecessary fines for violations. No more neighbors afraid to step out of line. People actually started enjoying their homes again. Families could let their kids ride bikes without someone calling the HOA about sidewalk damage. Homeowners could decorate however they pleased, without worrying about being out of compliance. For the first time in years, Willow Creek felt like a real neighborhood, not a prison. And even though Adam still wasn't part of the HOA, he could tell that his battle had made an impact. People had seen firsthand what happens when power goes unchecked, and they weren't about to let another Melissa take over Adam's farm. Thrives despite everything Melissa had tried to do to shut him down, Adam's farm had never been more successful. With all the publicity from the HOA feud, more and more locals supported his farmers market. Families brought their kids to see the animals, buy fresh produce, and support a farm that refused to be pushed around. Even some former HOA board members became regulars. One afternoon, Richard Connors, the new HOA president, stopped by the market. "Thought you didn't like my farm," Adam teased as Richard picked up a carton of eggs. Richard sighed. "I never had a problem with you, Lawson. Just with, well, you know who." Adam smirked. "Yeah, and where is she now?" Richard chuckled. "Not our problem anymore. No, she wasn't, and she never would be again." A final victory. As the weeks passed, Adam realized something. The best revenge wasn't seeing Melissa fail. It wasn't even getting the HOA to back down. It was winning without sinking to their level. Melissa had spent years trying to control people. And where had that gotten her? Kicked out, alone, powerless. Adam, on the other hand, he was exactly where he wanted to be, living free, on his land, without anyone telling him what to do. And in the end, that was all that ever mattered. The sweet taste of freedom. Adam Lawson leaned, back in his old wooden porch chair, watching the sun set over his land. The fight was over. Melissa Thornton, the woman who thought she could control him, steal his land, and bend the world to her will, was gone. The HOA had backed down, forced to acknowledge their limits, and Willow Creek Estates, it had finally become a place where people could live without fear. For the first time in years, the neighborhood felt like a real community. Kids laughed as they rode their bikes down the streets. Families decorated their homes however they wanted, without worrying about a citation showing up in their mailbox. And Adam? He could finally enjoy his farm the way it was meant to be enjoyed. No more trespassers, no more threats, no more fights. Melissa's legacy, a warning, not a memory. Despite everything she had done, Melissa was nothing more than a bad memory now. No one missed her. In fact, most of the neighborhood pretended she never existed. But Adam knew better. People like Melissa always come back somewhere, in some form. Maybe not in Willow Creek, but in another neighborhood, another HOA, another town. Because people who crave power over others never truly disappear. That's why Adam kept the sign at the front of his property, a bold reminder, standing just outside the HOA's reach. Welcome to Lawson Farms. No HOA, no bulls, no Melissa. It wasn't just a victory sign. It was a warning to anyone who thought they could ever pull the same stunt again. The best revenge is living free. Adam didn't need to gloat over Melissa's downfall. He didn't need to rub it in anyone's face. His farm was still standing. His land was still his. And at the end of the day, that was all the victory he ever needed. Because the best revenge is simply living free. Life lessons from Adam's story. Adam Lawson's battle against an overreaching HOA is more than just an entertaining story. It's a powerful lesson in standing up for your rights. In life, there will always be people like Melissa Thornton, those who crave control, who push boundaries, and who believe they can manipulate others to serve their own interests. But Adam's story teaches us that knowledge, resilience, and a refusal to back down are the greatest weapons against tyranny. His victory wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting what was his. It reminds us that understanding our rights, whether it's about property, workplace issues, or personal freedoms, can prevent us from being taken advantage of. Bullies thrive on fear and compliance, but they crumble when faced with someone who knows the law and refuses to be intimidated. Most importantly, Adam's story proves that the best revenge isn't destruction, it's success. Instead of wasting energy on anger, he chose to move forward, grow his farm, and enjoy the life he built. That's the ultimate win. Enjoy stories like this? Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss another wild HOA drama, epic revenge story, or real-life justice served.